I have been responsible for organizing, purchasing, and wrapping all my mother's birthday and holiday gifts from our entire family since I was 13 years old. My four brothers and my father typically just contribute money toward whatever I pick out. Our family is Iranian, and gift giving is a huge deal in our culture. Not just the gift itself, but the whole ritual of it. For 15 years, I've been the one researching thoughtful gifts that my mom would actually like, keeping track of her interests throughout the year, coordinating with all five men in the family to collect their shares, wrapping everything, and then acting surprised alongside everyone else when she opens it. This has been going on for so long that it's just expected at this point. Recently, I started a new job at an environmental consulting firm that's been demanding. I'm regularly working long hours, while most of my brothers are either underemployed or have flexible schedules. Despite my schedule, nobody ever suggested taking over the gift coordination. They just assumed I'd handle it like always. Last Christmas, I spent hours finding a set of kitchen knives my mom had been wanting. After I purchased them, my brother Arash complained the gift was boring and practical, and Navid refused to pay his full share, saying it was too expensive even though we had all agreed on the budget beforehand. I ended up covering the difference myself and letting it go to avoid drama. Last week was my mom's birthday. After the Christmas incident, and with my work being overwhelming, I decided to do something different. I bought my own personal gift for her, a handmade bookmark with a meaningful quote that reminded me of stories she used to tell me as a child. It was small but thoughtful. I wrapped it and headed to my parents' house for the birthday dinner. When I arrived, I placed my small gift on the table where presents typically go. My brothers showed up empty-handed, one by one, each looking at the small pile containing just my gift and my dad's card. I could feel them looking at me expectantly, but I pretended not to notice. Throughout dinner, my mother kept looking toward the small gift pile. I could tell she was expecting more, especially since birthdays are significant in our family. When it came time for the gift opening, my mom first opened my dad's card with the cash, thanking him. Then she opened my small package with the bookmark. She thanked me, but then looked around the room and asked, "Is this everything?" My brothers all shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Arash leaned over and whispered to me, "Where's the gift from all of us?" "We were going to pay you back like always," I quietly replied. "I only brought my own gift this year." The silence in the room was noticeable. My mother's disappointment was evident, though she tried to hide it. My father, trying to salvage the situation, suggested everyone contribute cash right then, but my mom shook her head, saying it wasn't the same as a thoughtful present chosen with care. Later in the kitchen, while everyone else was having dessert in the dining room, my mother pulled me aside. "I understand you're frustrated with your brothers, but you should have told everyone you weren't handling the group gift this year, so they could have made other arrangements. You chose to prove a point instead of communicating, and now my birthday feels ruined." She walked away before I could respond, leaving me feeling both justified and guilty. Since then, my brothers have been sending me angry texts. Arash called me selfish and manipulative. Naveed said I embarrassed everyone just to be petty. Even Saman, usually on my side, said I should have given them a heads up. Only my youngest brother has shown any understanding, texting that he realizes they've been taking advantage of me for years. Part of me knows I should have communicated my decision beforehand. But another part of me is tired of always being the responsible one, the organizer, the emotional laborer for grown men who can buy their own gifts. Why should I have to announce that I'm not doing something that was never officially my responsibility? The more I think about it, the more I realize this isn't just about the gifts. It's about years of gendered expectations in our family. I'm expected to remember birthdays, coordinate gatherings, send thank you notes, check in on relatives, all while my brothers show up empty-handed and get praised just for being present. I've enabled this dynamic for so long that disrupting it feels like a betrayal to my family. My father called yesterday to tell me that my mother has been quiet and sad since her birthday. He didn't outright blame me, but the implication was clear. I'm starting to wonder if I went too far in trying to expose my brother's reliance on my labor, especially since my mother ended up being the one hurt by the situation. Edit. To clarify, I didn't decide to stop doing the group gift out of nowhere. After Christmas, when Arash criticized my choice and Naveed refused to pay his share, I actually told them I was reconsidering organizing gifts in the future. They laughed it off and said I was being dramatic, so I don't think they took me seriously. I've been keeping these feelings bottled up for our entire relationship. The expectations, the unequal division of emotional labor, the fact that I've spent countless hours managing my family's emotional obligations since I was barely a teenager, all while my brothers coast by with minimal effort. I love my mother and never wanted to hurt her, but I'm exhausted from carrying this burden that no one else even acknowledges. I haven't told anyone else about how deeply this has been affecting me. What should I do? Now for the first update. The family meeting from hell and some surprising support. Wow, I never expected my post to gain so much attention. I've read through every comment and appreciate all the advice and support. It has helped me feel less crazy about this whole situation. It's been a week since my mom's birthday dinner disaster, and things have only gotten worse. The texts from my brothers haven't stopped, with Arash and Navid sending daily messages about how I ruined mom's birthday and created drama for no reason. My parents have called several times, with my mom sounding disappointed and my dad suggesting I just apologize to keep the peace. Meanwhile, I've been swamped at work with a major environmental impact assessment due next week, so I've barely had time to process everything. On top of work stress, I've been helping my grandmother who lives across town. I take her to doctor appointments, help with paperwork, and check in on her several times a week. None of my brothers ever volunteer to help her, despite 3 of them living closer to her than I do. Yesterday morning, I got a text from Arash saying we needed to have a family meeting at our parents' house to clear the air about what happened. I agreed to go after work. When I arrived at 7:30 p.m., my parents and all 4 brothers were already seated in the living room. As soon as I sat down, Arash said, "We need to address your selfish behavior at mom's birthday and how you deliberately set us all up to look bad." I tried to explain my perspective, that after years of doing all the work only to be criticized and sometimes not even fully paid back, I decided to only give my own gift. But Navid cut me off before I could finish. "You've always done the gifts. It's your thing," he said. "You can't just stop without warning because you're in a bad mood." I was about to respond when my youngest brother Saman spoke up. "Maybe we have been taking advantage of her," he said. I never really thought about how much work goes into finding the right gifts. Before I could thank Saman, Arash dismissed him completely. "She's better at that stuff anyway," Arash said. "Why should we all waste time when she can just do it once?" My mother jumped in to say that while she appreciates everything I've done over the years, family traditions are important in our culture, and changing them abruptly hurts everyone. She explained how gift-giving isn't just about material things, but about showing respect and maintaining family bonds. I understand her perspective, but it doesn't address how these traditions always seem to put the burden on me. I tried explaining how much time I spend researching gifts while balancing my new job and helping our grandmother. That's when my father suggested, "Maybe you should visit your grandmother less often if you're so busy." I pointed out that none of my brothers help grandma, despite having more flexible schedules than I do. I asked why my time was considered less valuable than theirs. Why was I expected to sacrifice while they weren't even asked to contribute meaningfully? I decided to lay it all out. I pulled out my phone and opened a spreadsheet I've kept for years. I showed them exactly who had paid what for each gift over the past 3 years. It clearly showed that Arash had only paid his full share 50% of the time, Navid was consistently late with payments, and the others weren't much better. I also had notes on how many hours I spent shopping, wrapping, and coordinating each occasion. My mother said, "This isn't about money. You're turning something beautiful into an accounting exercise. This isn't how family is supposed to work." That hurt, but it showed me how deeply ingrained these expectations are. In her mind, my labor is just love. It shouldn't be counted or acknowledged because daughters just do these things. My spreadsheet made visible what was supposed to remain invisible, the uneven distribution of family responsibilities. After about 2 hours of back and forth, we came to a tentative agreement. I would coordinate the Mother's Day gifts next month, but my brothers would have to actively participate in suggesting ideas rather than just throwing money at me and calling it done. Everyone reluctantly agreed, though Arash and Navid seemed unhappy. As we were leaving, my youngest brother Saman caught up with me in the driveway and asked if we could meet for coffee sometime this week. He said he thinks I'm right, but doesn't want to take sides publicly against our older brothers. It was a small victory, but it meant a lot after feeling so alone in this. On the drive home, I kept thinking about how this isn't really about gifts. It's about gendered expectations and invisible labor. In Iranian culture, women are expected to be the keepers of family traditions and emotional connections. We're supposed to remember everyone's favorite foods, buy thoughtful gifts, send thank you notes, check in on elderly relatives, and manage all the unseen work that makes a family function. Meanwhile, my brothers show up, eat food they didn't cook, open gifts they didn't shop for, and get praised just for being present. I'm realizing that by disrupting this pattern, I'm challenging a much deeper cultural expectation. No wonder everyone reacted so strongly. I'm not just refusing to buy a gift, I'm refusing my assigned role. To answer the most common questions from my last post: 1. Yes, I've tried talking to them about this before, but they never took me seriously. 2. No, my mom doesn't expect my brothers to do this kind of emotional labor. It's always fallen to me. 3. Yes, my dad contributes financially, but doesn't do any of the actual work of finding gifts. Mother's Day is coming up in a few weeks, so we'll see if my brothers actually step up with gift ideas or if they just wait until the last minute and expect me to handle everything again. I'm trying to be optimistic, but based on the family meeting, I'm not holding my breath. I'm meeting Seman for coffee tomorrow, so maybe I'll get some insight into what my brothers have been saying when I'm not around. Not sure what to do if they don't fulfill their part of the agreement about Mother's Day. Should I just let it go and do it myself to spare my mom's feelings, or stand my ground even if it means another difficult family gathering? I'll update once I see how things play out. Now for the second update. Hashtag Update 2. The gift drama continues, plus my brother showed his true colors. First, thank you all for the support on my previous posts about this family gift situation. It's been 2 weeks since that family meeting, and Mother's Day is now only a week away with literally 0 gift suggestions from any of my brothers except Salmon. Work has gone from demanding to completely overwhelming. I'm now putting in 60-plus hour weeks for this environmental impact assessment that's due in just days. My boss keeps adding more responsibilities because I'm so detail-oriented. Thanks for punishing competence with more work. Mini update before I continue. My grandmother's health has taken a downturn recently, so I've been driving her to doctor's appointments 3 times a week. She barely speaks English, so she needs someone there to translate and help with medical forms. Even though 3 of my brothers live closer to her than I do, they're suddenly too busy whenever she needs help. Yesterday, I finally hit my breaking point and sent a group text to my brothers. Mother's Day is in 7 days. As we agreed at the family meeting, I'm not handling this alone. Please send gift ideas by tomorrow or I'm out. Arash replied with, "We'll figure it out." Naveed just sent a thumbs up, and my third brother left me on read. Only Salmon actually suggested something, a cooking class gift certificate, which was actually thoughtful. Later that night, Arash texted me privately, asking to meet at the coffee shop near our parents' house. I was surprised he wanted to talk in person, so I agreed despite my insane schedule. I figured maybe he was finally taking this seriously. I arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early because I had to head to work right after. Arash showed up 20 minutes late without even texting to let me know. He walked in, nodded at me, then went straight to the counter to order his complicated coffee drink without even asking if I wanted anything. When he finally sat down, I expected him to dive into Mother's Day planning. Instead, he launched into this whole speech about how our mom has been stressed and upset since my birthday stunt, implying that I was somehow affecting her health. He kept saying things like family harmony and respecting traditions, while giving me this look. I tried to redirect the conversation to the reason we were actually meeting. I need everyone's input on Mother's Day gifts. That was our agreement, remember? Arash waved his hand dismissively. Just get something nice like you always do. We trust your judgment despite what happened at Christmas. That's when I decided I was done playing nice. I pulled out my phone and opened the spreadsheet I've been keeping for years that tracks every gift, who paid what and when, and roughly how many hours I spent researching, shopping, and wrapping. I showed him how he still owes me $120 from Christmas, $75 from Dad's birthday, and partial payments from the last 4 family occasions. His face went from surprised to angry in about 2 seconds. Are you seriously keeping score like this? That's not how family should work. Mom would be devastated if she saw this. It's not keeping score, I said. It's documenting what actually happens instead of letting everyone question how much I contribute compared to everyone else. That's when things got real. Arash started saying my attitude problem began when with my new job. It became clear this wasn't about gifts at all. It was about me stepping out of the role they all expected me to play. I finally lost my cool and pointed out that while I work 60+ hours weekly, help our grandmother with medical appointments, and have always handled family gifts, he lives 10 minutes from our parents, yet barely helps with anything beyond occasional lawn mowing when Dad specifically asks him to. People in the coffee shop were staring at us now, which made me even more uncomfortable. Arash raised his voice saying, I've always been dramatic, and that coordinating gifts isn't real work compared to his job in construction, because apparently physical labor is the only kind that counts, though somehow not when it involves carrying groceries for Grandma. I'd had enough. I gathered my things and told him, if coordinating gifts is so simple, you can handle Mother's Day yourself. I'm done managing everyone's emotional obligations while you all take credit. The rest of my day was a disaster. I was so upset I could barely focus at work, then had to smile while taking my grandmother to her pulmonologist. By evening, my phone was blowing up. Both parents called separately. Dad demanded I stop causing problems and just do what you've always done. Mom was gentler, asking if something deeper was bothering me beyond just the gift issue. After those calls, I sat down and did something I probably should have done years ago. I wrote a detailed email to my entire family explaining exactly how much unpaid emotional labor I've provided over the years and how it connects to broader patterns in our family. I included screenshots of my spreadsheet, a breakdown of hours spent on various family responsibilities, and pointed out the gendered expectations that have existed since we were kids. Me helping in the kitchen while my brothers watched TV, me writing thank you notes for gifts they received, etc. I sent it before I could overthink it. Part of me wonders if I've just damaged my family relationships, but another part feels like this was long overdue. Maybe something good will come from forcing everything into the open. I woke up this morning to a text from Saman asking if he can come over this weekend to talk. He's the only one who seems to understand where I'm coming from. At least that's something. I still don't know what I'm doing about Mother's Day. Part of me wants to just handle it myself to avoid hurting my mom, but I know that would just reinforce the pattern. Another part wants to do absolutely nothing and let my brothers fail. A third part wonders if I should just get my mom something meaningful from just me and let things be with my brothers. After everything that's happened, I'm exhausted, but also strangely relieved. It feels like years of frustration are finally being acknowledged, even if painfully. I feel like I'm living in a drama with my brothers as the antagonists. More updates to come, unfortunately. Now for the final update. #final update. The Mother's Day showdown that changed everything. Still can't believe what happened. Wow. I can't thank you all enough for the support and advice on my previous posts about the family gift drama. Your comments gave me the courage to stand my ground when everything felt like it was falling apart. It's been almost 2 weeks since I sent that detailed email to my family, and the fallout was intense. My mom called me crying. My dad left a voicemail demanding I apologize for airing family business publicly. It was literally just an email to our family, but okay. And 2 of my brothers actually blocked my number. Real mature, guys. Only Saman reached out positively, texting that he'd never realized how much I'd been doing all these years and apologizing for benefiting from the unequal expectations. I honestly considered skipping Mother's Day entirely. My work project finally wrapped up, barely made the deadline, but I was emotionally drained from the family drama and still helping my grandmother with her appointments. In the end, I decided to go with a personal gift approach. I spent 3 evenings putting together a photo album documenting my relationship with my mom through the years, with little notes about each memory. Not to brag, but it turned out really beautiful. Thanks to all those scrapbooking skills I developed while making family Christmas cards that none of my brothers ever helped with. Mother's Day arrived, and I showed up at my parents' house around 2 p.m. as planned. When I walked in, I immediately knew something was different. My mom was sitting in her usual chair, but around her were several hastily purchased gifts. I spotted 2 items with price tags still attached and 3 gift bags from the same store. All 4 of my brothers were there, looking uncomfortable. Arash wouldn't even make eye contact with me. The tension in the room was high. My mom started opening presents with cheerfulness that made everything even more awkward. Naveed had gotten her a gift card that was obviously purchased that morning. The envelope wasn't even sealed properly. Then my third brother gave her that fancy new food processor she specifically mentioned disliking a few months ago when we saw it at the mall. I remembered this because I'd made a mental note specifically not to buy it for her, something my brothers would have known if they ever paid attention to these conversations. When my mom opened my photo album, everything changed. She started flipping through the pages, tears forming in her eyes. She stopped on a picture of us from when I was around 8, baking together in the kitchen. "This is what thoughtful giving looks like," she said quietly. "It's about knowing the person." Arash jumped in. "Well, we didn't have someone organizing everything this year, so of course things aren't perfect." What happened next shocked everyone. My mom put down the album and looked directly at him. "No, Arash, this isn't about organization. This is about paying attention to people you love. Your sister isn't your secretary." The room went silent. Then, surprisingly, my dad spoke up. "Your mother is right. I've relied on your sister too much over the years, and I haven't set a good example for you boys about sharing family responsibilities." Navid tried changing the subject by suggesting we order dinner, but Mom wasn't having it. "We're going to talk about this now," she insisted, and proceeded to tell everyone that after reading my email, she'd been reflecting on how she'd contributed to these patterns herself. She actually apologized to me right there in front of everyone for expecting me to manage everyone's emotional obligations. What followed was probably the most honest conversation our family has ever had. Mom and Dad acknowledged how they'd enforced gender roles without realizing it. Saman shared how he'd been trying to do better since our coffee shop talk. Even Navid eventually admitted he'd never thought about how much work went into the gift coordination. Arash and my third brother stayed pretty defensive throughout, making comments about how things have always been done and different strengths in the family. Eye roll. But for once, they didn't get to control the narrative. As everyone was leaving, my dad pulled me aside. "I never considered how much extra work you've been doing," he said quietly. "That's just how my family always operated, but that doesn't make it right." Driving home, I felt this weird mix of validation and sadness. Some relationships in my family might never be the same. Arash has barely spoken to me since, but others might actually improve. Mom has already started a family calendar for shared responsibilities, and Saman has taken over driving Grandma to her appointments twice a week. I don't know what happens next, but for the first time in years, I feel like the emotional burden isn't solely on my shoulders. Some patterns won't change overnight, but at least they're finally being acknowledged. Edit. Rip my inbox. So many of you have shared similar stories about being the family organizer. Apparently, this is super common for daughter-sisters. To answer the most common question, yes, Arash is still being a jerk and leaving me on read, but I'm giving him space to process. My third brother actually texted yesterday asking if we could get coffee next week, so maybe there's hope there. And yes, the photo album idea came from a commenter on my last post. Whoever you were, thank you. I'm finally at peace with everything that happened with this gift drama. Some relationships have changed, others might heal with time, but I'm no longer carrying the weight of everyone's emotional obligations. Thank you all for being part of my journey.